Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast. In this week's episode, I sit down with Chris Daniels, also known as Penna Van Dan. Now, this man is an absolute legend. On the 2-year anniversary of Adventure Athletes, me and a few of the guys headed up Penna Van carrying various heavy, cumbersome objects that look quite unusual to people that were just heading up on their daily stroll, and we came across this man, Penna Van Dan. Now, Lee pointed him out. Lee had heard about him already, and he was like, do you know who this man is? And Penna Van Dan is basically going for the world record of the most summits of Penna Van in a year, and he's doing it for an amazing cause. And I heard a little bit about the story, and I knew that I had to have him on. So Chris, yeah, I can't even explain what he was like. He was absolutely incredible to sit down and listen to, and he's had so many stories to share beyond Penna Van as well. And I knew nothing really about this guy other than what he told me on the mountain, and I've learned so much about him. He's absolutely phenomenal, and I just can't wait for you guys to get into the podcast. But first, we've got a sponsor. So we are now sponsored by Soulmate. They're a running shop based in Merthyr, and I'm going to let Paul give you a very brief introductory ad to the store.
We're Soulmate. Whether you're new to running or an experienced runner, we've got you covered for both road and trail, from shoes to nutrition to running poles and everything in between. Use code ADVENTURE10 both in store or online for 10% off your order.
And now, welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast. So what was your call to adventure?
Back in 2014, I'd only just returned to sort of training of any kind after a 30-year absence. I used to sort of run back in my late teens, early 20s. I wasn't very good at it, but I was okay. I enjoyed it, you know. And I then came down with something really bizarre called pigeons lung, which, believe it or not, I got from having budgies in the house. They were clean,
yeah,
but like if there's any kind of like budgie feces anywhere, and you've got like issues with your lungs and what have you, it causes problems, and it developed into really serious asthma. So I went from being able to run marathons, half marathons, you know, quite often, to hardly being able to run at all. So at the age of about 23, not being able to run, I started cycling. I'd never ridden a bike before in my life, and I started cycling. I did that up until I was about 28, 29, and then, God, I really stupidly decided, well, I'm not getting anywhere with this. And there's a thing you'll probably find as we get into this talk, that when I get into something, I really get into it. And I thought, well, I'm putting all this effort into cycling. I'm never really going to get anywhere with it, because it was different times then.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to give this a rest, and I'm going to try making my hobby my job, which was good in some respects, but really, really bad in others. So for the next 30 years, I kind of did that. Job-wise, fine. Work-life balance, not so great. Exercise, more or less non-existent. So I just got back into sort of very, very basic training when I was about 48. And I thought, yeah, you know, great, you know, I'll stick at this level now. I won't be stupid. I shouldn't have given it up. And about a year later, my wife Rita was diagnosed with bowel cancer. And this was a complete bolt out of the blue. We knew nothing about bowel cancer, other than, you know, the vagaries that most people know. This was back in 2012. So the charity I came to volunteer and have a lot of time for Bowel Cancer UK. They were very small at that time. There wasn't any bowel cancer UK people on the ground in Wales. So our sort of view was that people in their 70s got bowel cancer, and she was 48, and she was incredibly unfortunate, because in most cases with bowel cancer you get a tumour that, if left unchecked, will grow. It'll break through the bowel wall, and then it really starts to spread to other parts of the body. Her tumour was incredibly small, nowhere near the bowel wall, but unfortunately it was a very rare sort of variant of the disease where it spreads through the blood, and we were told almost instantly that it was palliative care. It could be treated, but it couldn't be cured. And you can imagine what this does, to your life. I mean, we'd been together since we were 17, and everything everything just disintegrated. But Rita was an incredible woman. She, like so many other people I've come to know who've had this disease, I'm not saying this is the right way to go about it. Whatever way you deal with cancer is the right way to go about it for you. But for Rita and many others I've known, the way to go about it was to say, well, all right, I can't do a huge amount about me, but how do I stop other people getting this illness? And she started, volunteering for campaigns to let people know you can get bowel cancer if you're younger than 50. In fact, I've known people in their 20s get it, unfortunately. But she volunteered for campaigns like that. She did a lot of work to get the message out there. And I was feeling a little bit inadequate at this point because I wanted to do something to help, but I couldn't quite work out what to do. And by chance, somebody said to me, well, why don't you do something like a sponsored something or other, a walk, a run. I thought, well, I still can't run because of the asthma, but I'd got back into cycling. So I thought, I'll try some cycling. So the first event I did, was a 200-mile ride on a very, very basic turbo in the Red Dragon Centre down in Cardiff. And you can download the software, pick your routes and everything. I stupidly picked a Tour de France route, which I was nowhere near capable of doing at that time, or probably now. For the first day, oh my God, I couldn't walk the end of the first day. They sort of drove me home in the van. Oh my God, I got to go back tomorrow and do another one. And it was absolute hell. But it raised a load of money, yeah? It raised a ton of money, so that was great. So we thought, well, we're on to something here. And we started looking at other options, and by sheer chance, around that time, somebody up in Scotland who knew us, who lovely lady whose daughter had passed away from bowel cancer, she'd been to a charity auction for the charity, and she'd got a book by a chap called Mark Beaumont, who had cycled around the world, and it's a great book, and sent it through to me, and I read it and devoured it. I thought, my God, what an adventure. This is amazing. Like he's ridden around the world. He's done it on his own solo, and wow, this is just incredible. Excellent book. Any of Mark's books are fantastic. If you get a chance to read them, do. But this one really resonated with me, and from a technical point of view, I was thinking, well, I can't do that, obviously, and wouldn't want to do it, with what was going on with Rita at the time. But we were both looking for something to think, well, something big that would really give us a chance, to get awareness out there around bowel cancer and to raise money for the charity. And that just seemed like a real good option if we could somehow or other do it indoors, which seemed ridiculous, but we researched it and we found out that we could have, you could get a turbo, which is a sort of a device for people that don't know, where you can mount a bike on it, and these days it's popular with something like Swift. All that stuff was in its infancy. I'm not even sure if it existed back then, but you can mount a bike on it, and you can get, the one we had anyway, would do gradients relatively accurately up to 25%. And it would, even when you were going downhill, it would sort of give you a sort of a 5% downhill boost as well. So it was pretty accurate. So we knew we had that. And we knew that there was a company that you could download a sort of a version of the roads, like Google Earth. And, you'd see pictures of sort of France if you were riding through it, sort of, every second shuttering along. Not the most cinematographic, but but with the roads being replicated, we knew that was possible. So we decided that, right, what we were going to do, we were going to wait until I retired, and I was going to train over the next 5 years, which also seemed sensible, because keeping me fit and active was absolutely the right thing to do with Rita being so ill, because the last thing I wanted to do was stop training, stop being fit, get ill, get stressed, and then possibly get ill myself and have her worrying about me. And I didn't want that, so I realised I had to keep as fit as possible, but obviously spending as much time, with her, and just sort of fitting that in around, whenever she wasn't on treatment and such like. And we thought, right, yeah, we'll do it when we retire. And we always had hope. And hope is something, you can't put a price on, you can't define it, but no matter how bad a situation is, if you've got hope, you always think you're going to get out of it. And we thought, do when we retire and when Rita's well. And it was something sort of in all this darkness that we were going through, something that gave us a little bit of light to say, we could do some good here, we could really help people. And that's what Rita was about. And if that's what she was about, then you're damn sure that's what I was going to be about as well. So started training for it. And in 2015, I did an actual cycle ride around Wales, where I went to sort of every major town or city in Wales over an 11-day period. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, it was 850 miles in 11 days. I was now by this time a big fanboy of Mark Beaumont, so I'd bought a complete replica of the bike he'd ridden around the world on. Not quite the big adventure that he had, but a massive adventure for me, because I'd never done anything like this before. It was a real hard lesson as well, a real hard lesson and introduction to doing anything sort of endurance-y. 11 days doesn't sound long, but to me then that was like, that may as well have been 200 days, And I was very fortunate, because lots of amazing people, friends and people that I worked with, sort of supported me, because the concept was I'd be riding the bike, Rita and my family would be behind me in the car, and they would be going into places and and getting donations, raising awareness. And then at the last moment, then they changed Rita's chemotherapy cycle, and she would be going into chemo part of the time I was doing this. And there was no way on earth she was letting me not do it, because we had quite a good bit of publicity around it by this point. And so all these people just sort of rocked up and just rode with me and supported me. And I got through it. And it was absolute hell on earth. It was but it was also kind of like fantastic, because I got to see Wales, well, all of Wales, it's a country I live in, obviously, but I got to see Wales in close quarters, when you're riding through sort of Snowdonia, and it's a beautiful day in the middle of July, and you're in the middle of more or less nowhere, but you could just see all that wonderful countryside, and you can breathe that fresh air. It was just fabulous, it was just fabulous. And it, really good for the soul, which is something certainly I needed at that time. Did it. What we didn't tell anybody, of course, is that in the back of mine and Rita's minds is, if I can get through this, if you can get through 11 days, then, that's a building block to many other building blocks, which will get you to doing the world ride. And all went really well, great, fantastic. We raised a load of money, we raised a load of awareness, and the plan was still on. But life isn't always the way you'd like it, and in 2016 Rita passed away from bowel cancer, and it was a terrible time for me, a terrible time for my family, our friends, everyone. That I often equate it to the fact that when you lose someone, not just to cancer, it's like throwing a stone in a still pond, and the ripples come out and they hit absolutely everybody, not just me, the immediate family, our sons, but friends, acquaintances. It's just such a wide impact. And I really fell into a very, very dark, deep hole at that point. And the logical thing to do was to take time off from the sick and to go back to work and to, just try and rebuild a normal life. But the thing that kept nagging away at me at that point was, we were talking about this world ride. It was important to Rita. Therefore, it was important to me as well. And I thought, sometimes maybe money isn't always the key thing, being financially secure and such like. So I thought, no, I'm going to do something I would never have thought I would have done for the rest of my previous life. I'm going to take a massive risk. I'm giving up my job. And I was, 54 at the time. And bear in mind, like I said, I'd only ridden, for 11 days. And I'm going to train for, I think it was 18 months, something like that. And I'm going to really put everything into this, and I'm going to have a go at it. And long story short, thanks to getting some great sponsors, and we ended up getting sponsored by Tax, who built the trainers. We had D2D Cycling, who designed me a specialised jersey, because if you've ever ridden on a turbo, one of the main problems with if you ride indoors and there's no air conditioning is like it gets really, really hot.
Yeah.
And like some of the venues I was in, I mean, they were breathtakingly hot. I mean, we were in the Village Hotel at one point during the ride in Swansea in the middle of winter, which sounds fine, but of course it's minus God knows what outside. So they've got heating on full blast, to make the guests feel comfortable. They've got lights in the ceiling, and when you're on a turbo, you're pretty near those lights. And it must have been about 30 degrees in there. But this jersey was so thin that I was told, if you wear it out afterwards, Chris, when the ride's over, for God's sake, put sun cream on your back, because otherwise you'll be bright red by the end of it. So really, really lucky. But yeah, we did the training. Again, had loads of support off people. And Mark Beaumont, my absolute hero, went out and did another world ride, an actual world ride, where he did it in under 80 days. Again, brilliant book. Can't recommend it enough. And he very kindly agreed to be my patron, which added a huge deal of sort of strength to the actual ride itself. And certainly in the cycling community, that was like a massive stamp of approval. And in December 2017, I set off, and I rode basically the same rules you would go for a world cycling ride. Now, I haven't done this for a long time, okay, so if I get some of the countries in the wrong order, I do apologise. But I started off in the virtual Arc de Triomphe in France, and I went France, Belgium, I think Holland, Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. They're the ones I usually get mixed up on. And then into Russia, and then down through Mongolia and down into China. And it was Mark's route. He'd let me officially download it from Strava. And then over to Australia. Loved Australia because there's a really flat road there for 100 miles. It's just, I know it sounds ridiculous when you're on a turbo, but the gradients, they absolutely kill. And then into New Zealand. Out of New Zealand over to Alaska, and then sort of zigzagging through America and Canada, back into Portugal, into Spain, and then back into France and into the Arc de Triomphe. But in reality, when all this is going on virtually, and this is like, what I'm thinking about, that means every week I'm going to a different venue, because the way I do my endurance is kind of different to most people, because most people think, I'm going to do this event. This is the absolute key, getting this done is the be all and end all. And I totally understand that. And that is very high on my agenda, because other things won't work if you don't do that. But I sat down with a team, again, of volunteers who I couldn't do these things without. And we talked through how we should be doing this. And they said, no, Chris, you've got to do it as you've always done it, and that's raise awareness about bowel cancer, raise money for the charity, finish the event. And in all cases and all the decisions we make, it's got to be that way.
Yeah.
So So we ended up sort of, rather than going for one venue with air conditioning, which would have been lovely and would have been great to if you're looking to do something like this, and I would highly recommend that if anyone's going to try it. No, we went to 30 different venues across South Wales. The most we were in a venue, I think, was 2 weeks. So that meant quite often going to different places and setting up every day. So, for example, we were in Friars Walk in Newport. We were actually outside, obviously under covers, but in the middle of winter. And every day we had to go there, set the turbos up, because there'd be people riding with me as well, because that was another way to raise awareness and raise more knowledge of other cancer diseases as well. And I'd be on the turbo, I'd be riding. If there was somebody with me, they would help the other riders. If not, I'd be leaping off the bike. So if you come along, you want to ride with me, I set the bike up for you. If the bike isn't big enough, I go back to the van, I get my other bikes. I've got 3 bikes, 2 for the people that are riding, 1 for me. I'll go and get a bigger bike for you. I'll put it on the turbo. I'll set you up. I'll talk you through the system. I'll get you on it, and you're away. And there's in some venues that we were in DVLA, and we were really high up on people's agendas then. So whereas I was initially having 2 or 3 people riding with me in a day, maybe some days nobody, we had 14 people. So I was off and on the bike every day, and I'm riding at that point 10 to 12 hours a day through some pretty tough terrain. And and I'm off and on the bike because that's important, because these people are raising money for charities, and that's the main thing we're about. So I'm doing that. And the reason we're in different venues is because then I can talk to people. So if somebody comes up and chats to me about the disease, then they'll talk to my friends, my volunteers are there with me, but quite often they'll come up and they'll talk to me as well. So I could be literally going up a virtual mountain as a 20% gradient in the middle of Alaska, knowing I've got 7 more days of this to come, or going through the Urals in Russia, and yet somebody is chatting to me about losing somebody, or about having cancer at that time themselves, or even a good story where they've got over cancer, and you've got to give that person time as well, as well as doing the ride. And that's the way we did it. And I was on the bike for 232 days and 16 hours. The 16 hours are really important, obviously, because it's less of a day. And in 2018, I became the first person to virtually cycle the world. And to this point, because no one else is stupid enough to do it, I'm the only person to virtually cycle the world. And that was probably my biggest introduction, obviously, to endurance. And up until now, the biggest endurance event I've ever done. Now, you'll get from this, I'm a cyclist, okay? And everything I've done up until this point is cycling. I did various other things after this. I spent the next sort of couple of years training up 2 people, Jeff and Rob, absolutely amazing guys who hadn't cycled since they were in their teens. But Jeff's brother had passed away in America. They'd come along and cycled with me in the virtual ride, and we wanted to sort of raise awareness, or Jeff wanted to raise awareness of his brother's issues. And as his brother lived in America, we were going to cycle from Florida to New York, and I helped train these guys up to be, very, very good cyclists, frustratingly better cyclists than I am. But we were all ready to go. We'd mapped out all the routes and everything. And then COVID hit. Literally the week we were going to fly out to America, they closed all of America down, and that ride got cancelled. And we've never been able to put it back on since. And I thought that was me done with endurance stuff, because I'm getting pretty old now. And I ended up doing some challenges, about 2 years ago, where I went out on the internet. So I won't go for endurance stuff. I'll try something different. So I went out and I asked people to get in touch with me and give me a challenge based on my fears and things I don't want to do, because we were trying to link it into the age for bowel screening dropping to 50, which is a silver bullet, because if you take the test, it's not going to be bowel cancer in over 90% of cases, but even if it is, if it's caught early, again in over 90% of cases, it's treatable and it's curable. So you'd think people would be doing the test, but no surprise, men aren't. So I thought, I'm a man. So if I can face my fears, maybe it'll help men to do similar. So I ended up doing things like holding Nicaraguan tarantulas, being thrown in the cold sea in the middle of February when I can't swim very well and I hate the cold, being strapped to a biplane. Oh God, that one still haunts me. And 2 flights on that, 2 blooming flights. Terrible. But yeah, but all those things, but in comparison to the endurance stuff, they're horrible, but they're over relatively quickly. But the very last one that they came up with was climbing Pen y Fan. Initially, they were going to have me do Ten y Fan, but because some other bright spark decided I should run the London Marathon, that didn't work with the timelines. It just wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
So we decided I'd do the London Marathon and I'd climb Pen y Fan 50 times after that. And I thought that because I'd done all the running training and because of all the cycling and I'd done previously, that Pen y Fan wasn't going to be particularly pleasant. And I'm not a hiker, I'm not a climber. I still don't see myself as that now. I'm very much a novice. But I thought, well, I should be all right on this because, it's an endurance-y stuff thing. It's only 50 climbs. I should be okay. Now, what I didn't realise, I'd never heard of something called mountain fitness until I actually got on the mountain. And I live 30 minutes from Pen y Fan, but I've only climbed it up until that 50. I'd only climbed it maybe 5 times, and all of those 5 times were after I was 55. And I liked the views, and I loved the vistas. I liked the end bit, but the bit in between the climbing up it, oh my God, I hated it. Didn't like it at all. I think, why would you want to do something like this where you could climb up a hill on a bike where it's got gears and the gears help you? This just seemed totally counterintuitive to me. But I thought, well, people have told me I've got to do it, and it is the last one, and then I get a nice break. Great, fantastic. So I start doing it, and the first 25, as I would have thought they would be, were absolute hell. The running helped a little bit, but not really that much. And yeah, I was suffering. But on the 25th climb, I think it was, I met a chap called Des Lally, who's got the current record for climbing Pen y Fan the most in a year, which is 365 days. 365 times. 365 days. Everyone knows a year is 365 times, but it isn't one a year. Like if you read the newspapers and the media, they've sort of made it look like that because it sounds nicer, but as Des said, no, that's not the case. He said, it's sort of, he was fitting the 365 in across a very, very busy lifestyle. So so Des is working and he's going up there sort of 7 o'clock in the night and climbing it 3 or 4 times, in God knows awful weathers.
Yeah.
And I think the last month he had to do sort of 50 climbs because, again, he wanted to get the 365 in, and the weather was just terrible. But the guy did it, just amazing. And listening to him, I was thinking, God, this what a story, what an adventure. Wow, I really like this. And this is all on top of the mountain, literally on top of the trig, and it's coming down. And on the way down, Mike, who works for Bowel Cancer UK and sort of puts on the events for them, was coming down. And I was chatting to him and I was saying, Mike, that guy Des, wow, he's incredible, isn't he? He's done. Oh, no. I said, I really fancy having a crack at that. And he said, Chris, he said, you remember the conversation you had with me after the ride, where that's going to be your last big endurance event. You're getting on a bit now. It was really difficult, and you said if I ever I've got to talk you out of it. He said, I'm trying to talk you out of it now, mate. He said, you've done enough. You don't need to do that. And I, no, it'd be great. So by the time we'd got down, I was doing it. It was simple as that, It was the wrong time to do it in some respects because people had already been donating to these challenges. And I couldn't really ask friends and family because I usually have at least a 5-year gap between doing anything. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to ask friends or family or volunteers to get involved this time. I'll sort of do it, I'll think of another way of doing it. And I literally started training, well, more or less, once I finished the 50, I just carried on climbing the mountain. And I say it's all new to me. Since July last year, I've spent my time sort of speaking to people who are hikers, people who are endurance runners, people that are trail runners, trying to pick their brains, trying to see, well, what's the best gear, what kind of kit should I have, what's the benefit of walking with sticks. I mean, I couldn't get that. My mate Rob, who's a tenor vanner, just changed my mind, and it blew my mind when I used sticks for the first time. They're incredible.
They're good.
What if there was a piece of tech like that on a bike? That would be fantastic. They are great. But yeah, so I've started sort of buying hopefully the right gear, hopefully the right trainers, hopefully the right shoes for when the weather's appalling, and getting crampons and getting used to walking in the snow and the ice and the rain and the hail and all the awfulness that happens on the mountain. And yeah, in was it April the 5th of this year, I started climbing Pen y Fan with the concept of looking to break Des's record, and with long-term endurance stuff, there's kind of like an unwritten rule that you don't have a go at somebody else's record. It's ungentlemanly conduct, so to speak, unless you have a chat to the person and ask them if it's okay to do it. And Des was fantastic about that, and out of everybody, he's given me the most advice possible. The only plus I think I've got over Des, because he's younger than me, he's fitter than me. I often say to people, if you think of his body shape, he's a perfect V, and I'm more a capital B. So he's got everything. But the one thing I have got is I've got an inordinate amount of time. So that's my advantage, and I suppose I'm pretty good mentally as well because of doing the sort of 10 to 12 hours on the bike. That's one of the few things that does cut across. I'm used to being out and doing stuff that most people would find incredibly tedious or boring. For 10 to 12 hours, I can eat that. That's no problem. So 5th of April, I started climbing the mountain. My plan is to do it ideally 15 times. That's 3 times a day, 5 days a week. I've learned a bit of a lesson from the cycle ride where I took 3 enforced days off, which I didn't want to take, one of them being Christmas Day. But yeah, this time I'm taking a couple of days off every week to recuperate and to fit everything else in life that you've got to do. But I know the number I want to sort of do every week, and ideally I want to keep that to sort of 15 as long as possible. I do realise, however, that the mountain being the way the mountain is, there are going to be some times where that's not going to be practical, where the weather may be so bad. I don't want to be in a position where I'm going up that mountain and the wind is so bad that if something happens to me, the people from Mountain Rescue have to come up and get me, because that's putting their lives in danger. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do anything foolhardy. But, as long as it is climbable, whatever the weather is, I'm going up there. If I have to drop it through fatigue or illness or injury, the lowest I'm hoping to have to drop it to is 12 climbs a week. But ideally, I want to keep it going at 15. And so far, it's day, I think, 45 today, and I'm up to 96. So that's well ahead of where I want to be. But again, going back to the cycle ride, everything was going great there, and then I bent down to plug something in and I ripped a back muscle, and that was in February, and spent the rest of the ride then going to a very, very kind physiotherapist who was sorting me out for free. But my God, that was really, really painful 4 months sort of riding, with a ripped back muscle. It wasn't pleasant. And I know that at some point or other, my body, some way or shape or form, if I'm doing it for a year, something's going to give way.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be anything big, and that might knock me back a bit. I could have colds, the mountain road could be closed. I'm a terrible pessimist. I always look on for such an optimist, when it comes to this, I'm a real pessimist. I'm always thinking something could go wrong. So I just want to get as many climbs in as possible over the spring and the summer to give me a real big buffer. That doesn't mean to say I'm cutting back in the winter. It just means that if things are really bad, and if things are closed, if I do end up being ill or injured and unable to climb, at least I've got a buffer there. People ask me, how many climbs do you want to do, Chris? Well, for me, and I think for all people, who do long endurance stuff, that is an answer you don't want to give, because so many things can go wrong when you're doing something over such a long time period. So I always say to people on the mountain, look, I've done 96 or whatever is this moment in time. I'm hoping to do sort of between 12 and 15 every week, 15 for as long as possible. You multiply the rest of the weeks up on that, and then that'll give you some idea if everything goes well. But of course, everything could fail. So if I can get to 366, then that'll be fantastic. But I would like to do more.
Yeah.
But, we'll just have to see how it goes. It's
an incredible challenge. Like, it is honestly like breathtaking.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, it is 100%. And then, seeing you do it, because we obviously met on the mountain.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard anything about you. And then I was just like, wow, he's actually doing that. And then hearing you be like, come up 5 days a week, 3 times on those days. Like, it's just amazing. I'm like, completely taken aback by it.
And see, this sounds really awful, because it sounds like a humble brag. But I don't mean it this way. But I really struggle with that. See, because so many people are saying that to me. But like, I've been climbing that mountain during April, and the Tenavan guys are there, and ladies as well. I mean, and they are running up and down that mountain like 6 or 7 times in training, right? Okay, they're doing it in training, and then I had the privilege to see them doing Tenavan, because I was climbing a few extra that day because I wanted to give them some support, and they were just absolutely phenomenal. And Lee was with us on a day, and I mean, like, he ran, was it 32 kilometres over mountains before he even came up Penavan that day, and he looked fresh as a daisy, and so I really struggle with that, because I'm thinking, if somebody who was really, really good at this had a crack at it, Des is really good. The thing that hampered Des was, he has a life, which is great. That's what you want. You want a life, yeah? So he couldn't do it like full time. But if somebody really good, really, capable had a go at this, that would be fantastic. And I'd like nothing better than that. Like, I'd love somebody to have a crack at my world virtual cycling record as well, because I think that could be, a younger person could blow that out of the water. But realistically, I would think somebody's more likely to have a crack at the Penavan one, because, the mountain's there, and you need the kit and everything, but then you just need to climb the mountain. Whereas the cycling one, it's quite a costly thing to sort of set up. But yeah, I find it really odd. See, I don't think 3 a day is. It doesn't seem a huge thing to me, and that sounds terrible. It is really. I find it really. I'm not finding it easy, but I just think, these guys could like cream this, surely to God.
You say that, but it's the thing that's like admirable about it isn't the fact that it's like you're doing like 3 in a day, because like you said, that you got the tenor fan guys going up there, you got them training and everything. It's the consistency of it. Like if you look at anyone that's done anything spectacular, like you was talking about Lee, and although he goes out and does these amazing events and he's like absolutely smashes it, the magic's in the consistency of his training. Like he can only do that because he's so consistent in his training. Like you look at anyone doing anything like that, and it's the consistency that like wins it. And you're consistent with it. You're doing it 5 days a week consistently, and that is like, because like I heard about it and I was like, that's an amazing challenge. I'd love to be able to do it, but I don't think I could consistently go up there and do that 5 days a week, 3 climbs on those days. Like I'd go up, like I'm gonna do my own version of Tenor Van, where I'm just doing it to help with my fundraising stuff. And yeah, I'll do 10 in the day. But it's not like I'm gonna then go back the next day and do another 10, and then the next day and do another 10, because there's got to be days where you just don't want to go.
Well, there are, but again, that's well, case in point. Saturday, it wasn't so much a day I didn't want to go, but I did the first climb. Climb was fantastic. In fact, loads of people on there chatting to me, just great. Really enjoyed it, and flew up there. Flew for me up and down. Second climb, I'm about a kilometre in, and I've got a chronic pain condition, and I've had this, 15-20 years now, and it's gradually got worse. And it's an odd thing because it's I'm in pain now, and I'm in pain sort of more or less, well, every hour of every day. But when you're in pain all the time, you kind of get used to it. So like if you're looking at the pain from a 1 to a 10, at the moment it's about a 2, which, so I know it's there. If I've stopped doing everything and I'm just sitting down doing nothing, I can feel it. But I can feel it now because I'm talking about it. But like otherwise I wouldn't notice it. But it can ratchet up, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why it does this. And on Saturday it went from a sort of a 2 for the first time when I'm climbing up until about a 7 to a 9, and it was sort of yo in between those. And I'm a kilometre in, and my meds are back in the car because this hasn't happened so far, so I haven't carried them with me. And even if I've got them, they're going to take about 45 minutes to kick in. So I'm thinking, do I stop now? Because every step is hurting, and it's irritating me that it's hurting, because I know at this point in time my legs are okay, my back's okay, and my arms are okay. I'm not ill. I've just got this blooming issue, and it's really, really painful. And of course people are still coming up and they still stop me and say, "Oh, you Pen Van Dan," and they're asking for photos and everything. And back to the old, raise awareness, raise money, finish the thing. So I'm, yeah, and I'm having the photos and everything, and I don't let on to them, because that's not fair, because they wouldn't, they're having a nice time on the mountain, they're seeing me on there, they want a photograph, they want a nice experience. I'm not going to bring them down, so I'm stopping, and like that just makes the climb longer. The second climb's always longer, because I go up the first time and people see me, and on the second time they stop me and they talk to me. And like I say, because I'm after the record, but because I'm after raising awareness, that's more important to me. But so it's slowing the climb up, and I get to the top, and I'm thinking, geez, I'm in a agony here. And I don't know why I'm laughing. And I come down, and it's even worse coming down, because your body, like, it moves around more when you're coming down more freely, and like movement just really irritates it. And I get down and I take some tablets and I think, right, that'll take it. No, doesn't touch it. So I'm sitting there thinking, do I go up for the third one? And the thing that makes me go, first of all, is the check, right? If I go up, am I going to be so ill that someone's going to have to come up and get me? No. If that's a no, then okay, right. Am I going to be able to do this, or am I going to get halfway up and I'm going to somehow or other do something to me that maybe will stop me doing this the next day and the day after and so on and so forth. So for example, I had plantar fasciitis on one day back in April, and literally my foot was in such a bad position. I only did 2 climbs. I've got the one back since, but I only did 2 that day, and it was the right call. But oh my God, did I beat myself up? Well, until I got the one back, it's always in the back of my mind, could I have made that climb? But it was the right call, because I know it planted, because it happened before I did the London Marathon, and it really impacted me in that, because I had to run with it, and I was really in agony afterwards, but then I had the time to, I didn't have to do anything afterwards till I did the 50. So that was the right call. But with this, I know the illness, I know it's horrible, I know that, like, literally sometimes it's so painful that I can't walk, but I wasn't at that then, and I knew I could get up the mountain and get down, so you just go for it. And I think what makes me go for it is I've seen people in what, because when we do all this stuff, the bottom line is, we don't have to do it, can we? We could stop. We turn around, we just go, oh, I'm not doing it today. But I've seen people, like, go through hell, and the pain and the agony that they're in. I mean, like, Rita, for example, was on a chemotherapy tablet, and this is widely used, right? That you take it, and you've got to use it yourself, because I was told that if I touched it, literally just touched it, it would be so toxic, somebody would have to take me up, because I wouldn't be able to drive, take me immediately to A&E with the details of the tablet, because it would make me incredibly ill incredibly quickly. And she's putting us that into her mouth every 12 hours for 5 days, and like, that's the treatment, that, and that is hell in itself. And I think oxyplatin is the other chemotherapy Rita was on, and I didn't realise at the time, but a couple of my friends who are survivors of bowel cancer have told me that's referred to as the devil's brew, because of the pain it wreaks on the body. And again, that's the treatment. That's without the pain the illness causes. And when you've seen somebody go through that, it is really, really difficult when you've decided to do something, but for the right reasons or whatever, but you've decided to do it. It's really difficult then to say, oh, I can't climb that mountain today, or I can't get on that bike and I can't ride it today. I know I'm not, I don't consider myself athletic in any shape or form. I'm just very good at doing things very slowly for very long periods of time. But it would have to be an incredibly serious injury, or something outside of my control that would stop me going up that mountain or getting on that bike, because of what I've seen others go through. And and in a lot of cases, as a Rita, they're not here to be able to climb that mountain now. For me, it's a privilege, that I'm able to do that. So that's what gets me going up there. If there's any doubt, or if there's any pain, and there's going to be worse days to come, because I know there's going to be an accumulation, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder. And but that's also part of the draw of it as well. Do you know what I mean? If I can do this, it's not so much, I can do this and other people can't, because I know other people would be able to. I've already spoke about my views on that. But like, if I can do it, then that means something to me as well. Like, it's all about raising awareness. It's all about raising money. It is about doing it, but there has to be something personal in it for you as well. If you're going to put yourself through these type of hells, then you've got to want to do it as well. It's got to, and I really do want to do it. I'd love to get to the 4th of April next year and think, yeah, you know what? I did absolutely everything I possibly could. And if that means by that stage I've only done 366 climbs or 360 or 200 or whatever. That's fine. If I've put all my effort into it, then that's great. I can live with that. But I couldn't live with not doing the absolute best I could, because that's the whole point of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, from a personal perspective, you know, and there's got to be personal stuff in there as well. Yeah.
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 Do you think there's something like in that sort of chosen suffering, as we're describing it, that helps you as well? Because obviously you're saying, like, I've seen people go through it and they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what life's given them. Has the idea that the chosen suffering is, like you said, it's yours, like you've put yourself through it, has that done stuff for you? Like, do you find it benefits your mental health, things like that?
It definitely, and I wouldn't want people listening to this to think it's all suffering, because it's not. Most days, and even on the days like the bad days I've had so far, there's lots of good stuff as well. And even when I was doing the cycling, which probably I can talk about more, because that is done. You know, 10 or 12 hours on a bike sounds horrendous, and you know, well, a good example, you know, you're suffering maybe, you know, climbing, and I remember I was in Cardiff Airport, and we had to get there. This was in March, by the way, right? The airport are fantastic, really good with us. They give us 2 weeks there, and we were going to turn up about sort of 7 o'clock in the morning, set up, start cycling from 8. And we heard it was going to snow in March. It's Wales, of course it's going to snow, yeah. And we ended up having to go there at 5 a.m. We set up, and it's the day after the Wales-French match. And all the bus companies know it's going to snow as well, and it's going to be bad. So they bus all of the French supporters in really, really early. So we're set up and riding from about 5:30, 5:45, and they turn up about 6:30. And it is chocker. There must be about 5,000-6,000 French. I've never seen so many people in Cardiff Airport. They literally pack like sardines, right? Amazingly, one of the riders who's coming along to cycle with us, they usually do sort of 25 miles on another bike beside me, has somehow got there before it's really started to snow as well. I've told this poor guy that, yeah, we're in an airport. You know, you might have at any given time maybe 100 or so people, you know, in front of you. So that's okay, Chris, I'm not used to big crowds. Don't worry, I'm not a great... No, you'll be fine, hundreds of people. He's now cycling. We're literally in front of us about 4,000 Frenchmen and women, just like... And they love cycling, and they're going nuts, like, you know. And yeah, it's a painful day. But at one point, all these French, and they're on like various different levels, they all suddenly burst in to La Marseillaise, and they're all... So I am a cyclist, right? Okay, this is the closest I'm getting to the Tour de France, and there's 6,000 French singing their national anthem to us. You know, that's part of the reason. The good stuff is where you do it as well. You know, and yeah, so it isn't all about the suffering. I don't think that there's good stuff as well. Even on the worst days, there's good stuff. Yeah. I don't know if I probably forgot the question in part of that, so I don't know if that answered.
No, that was great. With it then, because you've done this cycling challenge, which I had no idea about, and that's blown me away. Which one's been harder so far, the Pen y Fan one or the cycling?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think the cycling was a hard one, because I think I remember the question now. Sorry, your previous question.
That's all right.
I think with the cycling, it was a bit of a, even though I didn't realise this at the time, it was kind of the equivalent of a pilgrimage, because you know, you're saying about suffering, and you know, am I doing the suffering, you know, because I've seen other people suffering? Do I feel guilt, for example? As you know, all these questions have gone through my head since, like, you know, am I feeling guilt and what have you, because it's not me, you know? And yeah, you know, I'd be lying if I said part of it wasn't that. But I was in a very very, very different place mentally then, because it was fresh after Rita had passed away, than I am now 10 years later. You know, when I'm on the mountain now, you know, and I'm chatting to people, you know, I'm far more relaxed. I'm far happier. Yeah, I'm in a less dark place. Whereas with the cycling, it was kind of like relentless, because, you know, the training before it, everything was just like, it was my entire life, you know. Partly, I think, because I was maybe, like we all do, running away from the reality of what life had suddenly become, you know. And then life is, you know, suddenly it's gone from being, you know, everything you ever wanted to suddenly everything's just been taken off you, you know. And it's unfair. It's not. And then you're thinking, oh, that's awful, because, like, you know, I'm thinking this, I'm still here, she's not, you know. And you go through all of this, all the, you know, the normal grief stuff, and then I'm, you know, so I'm throwing myself into the cycling. So the training was, you know, was brutal, because I had to come from zero. At least with this, I did have to get mountain fit, but I didn't have to come from zero. I sort of, you know, the phrase I use, I came almost like from couch to 18,000 miles, you know, and that's a hell of a long way. And with the cycling, I was very much pushing it, you know, that I wanted to get the money, I wanted to get the awareness, but I was also battling that thing with the, you know, because it was new to me, trying to balance that up against trying to get the record as well. And I was thinking, I've got to get the miles, and I've got to get the miles in. And because I didn't have the days off, it just got, you know, it just got darker and darker and harder. And I don't know if you find this, but like, when I do long endurance stuff, and I spoke to Mark Beaumont about this, and I've spoke to a couple of other people that have done it, and they seem to have it as well. But I haven't spoke to many people about it, if you see what I mean. But when I was doing the cycling, you know, you've got like a myriad of emotions in your head. Well, after about sort of say 3 months, these start like strip away. I don't know whether it's your body saying like, oh God, you know, this is the new normal now. He gets on the bike every day. He's on it for 12 hours. You know, he sets the bike up, he takes the bike down, he drives, God knows, back home, however far. So we can't do all of this. We've got to stop doing some things. So, or you know what? We won't let him have all the emotions. We'll give him, what does he need? We'll give him severe depression, because he seems to really like beating himself up all the time. Thanks, yes. So it leaves me with that. Then we'll give him like absolute bursts of joy, because he does seem to like that as well. We'll give him a bit of that, and we'll give him a sort of a zoned out as well. The zoned out's the best in the world, yeah. The zoned out's great, because sometimes you know, you're cycling along, and like suddenly 3 hours have passed, and you're thinking, geez, what's happened, like, you know. And you look down, and like all these miles have passed, and you think, oh wow, that's great. And then because you've clicked out of it, you're trying to get back into it, and of course you can't. Yeah, then the depression comes on. Then so I'm in a situation where I've just got these very basic emotions, and it's a really strange thing, because you know it's wrong. You know you should have all these other, but I just can't summon the others up. I don't know whether it's because I'm so, like, you're so physically tired. People think, oh, you know, I'm tired. If you've ridden a bike, you know, virtually or outdoors, whatever, for like 200 and odd days, and you're on it for 10 to 12 hours, and you are, you know, pushing yourself to your limits. I mean, they wouldn't be the limit, you know. I know other people are far better at pushing themselves, that they can push themselves further, but, you know, for my limits, I was pushing myself to my limits, and I would be absolutely wrecked, you know. And I'm just sort of balancing it between total exhaustion and being just exhausted enough that I can ride every day and ride well every day. And so if someone comes up to me, and normally this would be a bloke, so they come up in front of me, and they say to me, like, I know if this was on the mountain, I'd be fine with it, right? Okay, because I'm happier. Eh? But if they say, oh, so what are you doing then, mate? Cycling the world, eh? Doesn't look like you're going very far on that. Now, like, you know, not even a funny joke the first time, but you know, yeah, funny. But like, I rip these guys' heads off, like, you know, and that's not me. I'm not a nasty person. And I'm thinking afterwards, God, Chris, what are you doing? Like, you know, my crew used to call me the diva, because like a bit of a joke about it, like, you know, and so one of my friends would always bring me blue M&Ms. They'd pick the other M&Ms out there, and they'd say, "Oh, here's the blue M&Ms, you know, for Mariah Carey." But I'm sure she's a lovely person, but here's the blue M&Ms. But like, yeah, I wouldn't normally do that. But the longer you're doing this, the worse it gets. I think it's too early in the Pen y Fan case to sort of say whether I'll get like that. Part of the reason is having the 2 days off.
Yeah.
Is the hope that I don't, because it is. I mean, I wasn't like that all the time on the bike. Like there were other bizarre things where people would come up and they'd say something nice, and like, because of the joy thing. And again, I wouldn't do this. I mean, these could be basic. Say someone comes up and says, "Oh, you know, seen you. We bought you a bottle of Lucozade, like, you know," and you normally say thanks, yeah. But when you've got like the excessive joy, you don't say thanks. You burst into tears and you give them a hug, like, you know. And this person's looking like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, you know, and you know, but yeah, I think it's too early with the Pen y Fan one to know yet. I'm sure it's, you know, I know it's going to get harder. I know it's going to get tougher, and I might get into that situation. But I'm kind of thinking, you know, no, you've got to rein that stuff back in this time, you know. And I did it on Saturday and Sunday, so that's good. So hopefully, you know, maybe that's a lesson I've learned. I don't know, but yeah.
It sounds like this time around you're in like just a better place for yourself mentally, like you were saying. It's almost like you use that as like your coping mechanism to deal with like the trauma of everything.
Yeah.
But it seems like you've processed it a lot more now, and you've had that time to reflect and learn these lessons.
Yeah, and it's like, again, I'm assuming everybody else does this, but it's difficult to know. But like, if you're doing something like that for such a long period of time, there is no, God shows how old I am now, there is no mixtape, or I suppose Spotify, is that what you youngsters use? Yeah, there is no amount of music, no amount of podcasts, no matter how good they are, no matter how much you enjoy them, that you can listen to when you're doing that. Because long periods, like there were lots of times where people would be coming up and talking to me, but there'd always be like hours where people aren't. And once the music has gone, once the books and all the audible stuff has gone, then you're left alone with yourself. And it does help you, again, because all your emotions are stripped away. It does help you sort of focus, you know, on life and like how you deal with life. And like that, I'm sure that can be nice when you're in a good position and going through it, because it maybe resolve stuff for you and oh, this is the direction I want to go with the rest of my life. But of course, back then, I wasn't in a particularly good position. I just didn't know quite what to do in my life, you know, and it's like, what am I going to do when this ride finishes, you know? What's my purpose going to be? Because my purpose is gone. So hopefully this time, because I'm in a better position, maybe I'll have an epiphany of, I don't know, something, well, you know, you can crack on with this after this, because this is, if Mike was here now, he'd be laughing. This is definitely going to be the last major endurance thing I'm going to be doing. From now on, after this finishes, I'm going to do some stuff, you know, that I've learned to do over these various different challenges. I mean, I want to get back on the bike for starters. I haven't been on the bike in case I got injured, for something like 2.5 years now. Oh God, I miss the bike. But I don't want to stop climbing Pen y Fan either. When I finish this, I want to do some more mountains, and I want to get back to doing park runs, because that's another challenge people got me into, from not being able to run to do whether to do every park run in a year. And that was incredible, because of course I thought, well, I can't run again, but I thought they've asked me to do it, and I did stupidly go out and say, like, I can't run because of it. So they're, great, why don't you run, Chris? Thanks. So I want to get back into park runs because that's amazing as well. I really enjoyed that. And so I've got plenty to do, but I want to maybe do it just to enjoy it, because as great as this is, there's another pressure you get with this that you don't get when you're just doing it for yourself, because it isn't just about me doing the climbs. It's about me thinking all the time, oh God, how can I raise awareness? Can I? That's why something like this is great, because every podcast I get on, every time I'm on TV, every time I'm on radio, they're talking to me about Pen y Fan, which I totally understand and like that, and but there's also an option within that, to mention the charity, to mention, bowel cancer, and I've talked about that today as well. And then if that just gets one more person, to go and get their symptoms checked out, or if that test turns up for somebody over 50, and they'll do it, especially the men, then, great, but that is an added pressure because that's something you wouldn't normally have. And similarly, looking at the Just Giving page and thinking, right, am I bringing enough money in for the charity now? And, the charity are great. They're happy with anything you can get, but you probably worked out by now, I kind of like focus on things, so I focus on that as much as I focus on the Pen y Fan thing as well, and don't get me started on social media. Oh my God, harder than the climbing. But so it's strange one,
yeah. I'm at a similar point now because I started doing challenges in like 2019, and I just did them for me, like you're saying, like I just got into them and I got hooked to doing them. And then I was like, I should probably do these challenges. Like, I'm still going to do them.
Yeah.
But I might as well make them fundraising things. So I'm like adding benefit. And then the more I've been doing that, then it's like, oh, well, now I have to, like, the challenge has to be bigger because otherwise people aren't going to sponsor me.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, now I need to raise more money.
Yeah.
And like, it's just constantly, like you're saying, it's that pressure of like, oh, I have to do it now. And it's like, I've realised like it's taken a bit of the joy away for me. Yeah. So I've got this big challenge I'm doing this year, nothing compared to what you're doing.
Oh, I bet it is.
It's really not. And then like afterwards, I've started telling people like the next one, because my business is based around this sort of stuff as well. So it's not just the charities. It's being like, oh, I have to do it because it's my job now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to do something for me. So I'm not going to be posting about it. I don't want to like share it. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to go out and do a challenge.
Totally
just for the sake of doing it.
And you deserve that. You know, everybody, deserves like a work-life balance. And don't, so back of don't trust me, I've done it. Don't make work totally your hobby. Have something. There's got to be some me time. Even if you're doing stuff you love doing. I love my job. Then you still need to have a break from it from time to time. And then I find it's beneficial then, when you go back in to do whatever you're doing, you're far sharper and you're far happier as a result, because otherwise, if it takes the joy away of something that you absolutely love, then you've got to stop that happening. So you deserve that time, mate. You deserve it.
So I'll bring it back to the charity. How much have you raised for them, like throughout all of your challenges, not just with this?
Right. Well, I think. Oh gosh. Let me just work it out now. I think we're probably close to, because I've raised for quite a few cancer charities. Because when we did the ride, we opened it out to any cancer charity at all. So I think with this one, we must be close to 150, 160,000 pound now.
That's incredible.
Well, again, I don't see this as being me. See, this is the bizarre thing. I see it everyone that donates is the person that's done that. And like I say, when I was doing the ride, I had people that were cycling alongside me, and they would be bringing in and say, right, I'm going to raise for this. So it's sort of, I may be an enabler, but I don't see it as me that's raising the money. I'm just doing something that people want to donate and say, oh yeah, he's doing that, great, I'll donate some money. That's great. But they're the ones that are actually donating it. That's the thing where I always say, like on when I'm doing the lives on Instagram, I always say to people, like, I couldn't do this without you. And I mean that, like, I couldn't have, I certainly couldn't have got through Saturday and Sunday without people on the mountain being so positive and kind, and people on Instagram, giving me messages of support, because they knew, because I was telling them what I was going through, and they were, because they're along for the ride, and I sort of, I made a commitment when I was doing the ride to keep it real. And I said, look, I'm not going to come on every day and say, hey, been riding 100 mile today. I've been on the bike for 10, 12 hours. I feel ripped, because that's not me, because I don't feel ripped, right? I just don't. Some days I do. If I do, I'll come on and say, you know what, it's a great day today, really good, loved it, met all these fantastic people, everything was good, great. But if something goes bad, I'll tell people about that as well. And if something goes bad mentally, not just physically, I'll tell people, like, there's oh god, sorry to keep jumping around, but back when I did the cycle ride, probably the worst period a lot, because the whole issue was being out and about with people, is we had the beast from the east, and that was appalling for me, because I only just literally managed to throw all the gear into my van, thanks to a guy called Big G who was with me on the day, and managed to get everything in there. And I literally just got back home just before Merthyr got cut off completely with the snow, and it was cut off for, oh god, well, not just Merthyr, but everybody, like, I can't remember, 4, 5, 6 days, something like that. Now, the downside when you're doing one of these endurance challenges is you've got to do everything else as well, unless you've got a really big sponsor. I had a big sponsor, but not that, not one that was getting my food shopping. So my food shopping was literally, the day after that night. I couldn't get out of the house. So all I had to eat was porridge, and I didn't have any milk, so I just had porridge and water. And thankfully, a small supply of meals that somebody was, my sister-in-law would come up every month and cook me 30 meals, 30 really high quality meals. But I had to ration those, so I could have one of those a day, and the only other thing I could eat was porridge and water. And when you're on a bike or when you're doing pen van, you've got to, well, with the bike I was eating 5,000 calories a day, and I like eating 5,000 calories, and most of it is porridge and water, is really depressing. So I'll always tell people online how awful that is, but like that was a couple of days of porridge and water, and probably the loveliest thing that has happened to me. A guy called Stacey, because I was so down on my YouTube. How long ago was YouTube? Like, that's how long ago it was on my YouTube video that day, because not only was I on porridge and water, but I'd now run out of my tops, and I had to wash them. And that doesn't seem a massive thing, but my garage opens upwards, and there was a massive 6-foot snowdrift in front of it. So now I had to go down, after cycling for 10 hours, I had to go down and dig my garage out so I could do the bloody washing. And I was just so down. And this guy walked 3 miles in these appalling snowdrifts with a shovel, and came up and dug my garden out. Not just the garage. He then drew an enormous lewd sign of male genitalia on the front of my garden for a laugh, and left, which is but like, it's just interesting, like, from the dark times, something like that comes along, like, 'cause someone had saw that, they couldn't get there, so they got to someone else who got, and eventually got hold of him, and he said, I'll and this was like 1.5 miles uphill as well, like in crazy snow. So so sorry, I do rattle on a bit.
That's fine.
But yeah, so I think that the money, the sponsorship is great. The the support is great. I couldn't do it without those people, without people following me, without people giving me encouragement, and without people being there for me, like when it's dark times, you know. But I also think it's important to keep it real, because the last thing I'd want is somebody to look at me doing this or the cycle ride and think, you know, oh, he's not suffering. Oh, I'll have a crack at that. And then they have a go at it, and then they realise, oh, geez, you know, this is really hard. You know, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'd rather them go into it with open eyes and say, yeah, you know, parts of this are going to be difficult, but that is a key part of it. If it wasn't difficult, then, you know, for me anyway, there's no point doing it. I always like to think of my challenges they are things when I go into them, that I go into them with a view that I might be able to do that, but I'm not 100% certain I can.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I don't truly honestly believe that, then there's no point doing it, because I'm just going to be lackadaisical and think, well, I can do this, you know, I can do this. So, you know, but if I'm not sure, then that's one of the things that keeps me pushing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also one of the things that keeps people engaged with me as well. That they want to get involved, and they want to, you know, because they look at me and they think, God, like, you know, I mean, if I'm being honest, when people see Lee going up the mountain, they think, my God, he's a machine. When people see me going up the mountain, I tell them I'm doing what I'm doing, I can tell with some people, look on their face, they're thinking, my God, he looks like he's going to die. You know. I've always had that. Look, I don't know why. Even when things are going well, I always give that impression to people. But you know, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's got to be something that's worth doing for me, and it's got to be something that's going to really, really stretch me. And this is a lovely one with the cycle ride. I had to get to a certain distance as quickly as possible. With this, it's like it's kind of infinite in a way, because how many climbs is enough that you know, I've got to get to the 365, but if I was fortunate enough to get to the 365, then what happened? You know, you just got to keep on going, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? And there isn't like a sort of like, you know, you don't reach 300 and then right, you can stop now. Like with I get round the world, I can stop. There's no actual, other than the year, there's no physical end date to this. Just how many can I do in a year? Yeah. And that really intrigues me. That does, because I just don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And even if I do really, really well, will it be well enough for me to think it's good enough? It's really odd. Like, it's a real dilemma for me. I don't know, but I'm going to enjoy the adventure. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. Every day of it, I am going to enjoy it, yeah.
Good. Yeah. So you've done quite a few challenges now.
Yeah.
Something that I find after my challenges, which I'm keen to like ask you about, is like after you've done a big challenge, like the cycle around the world, and like you'll have after doing Pen y Fan, do you get like they call it like the post-race blues, where you get like a bit down?
Yeah, I know what you mean. After the cycle ride, I don't think it was post-race blues. I had this like imposter syndrome, because people would be coming up for me for weeks afterwards and saying, "Oh, you're the guy who did the virtual. Oh, yeah." And I'm talking to them, and like when I've been relaying some of the stories about this today to you, right? Okay, I'm. It's nice because in my mind I'm going back and I can see them, yeah. But back then, I just couldn't take it in. I just didn't feel. It was really weird. It just didn't. It's like I had dreamt it. It's like I couldn't take in I'd done that, and I think, well, I know I did it. Look, I got videos of me doing it. That's me, but I just couldn't believe that it was me. It just seemed so impossible and implausible that an old man, like with limited athletic ability, practically zero, had done that, and it just didn't it just didn't make sense to me. And that was for about 18 months afterwards. I couldn't take it in. I really couldn't. So I didn't get the blues after it. I just couldn't rationalise that I'd come to terms with the fact that I'd done it. It just seemed bizarre, you know. So yeah, so no, I didn't have the blues. I just had. I know you come down from the endorphins. The one thing I did do after I finished, I thought I don't want to see a bike again for a while, but I did do. Funny enough, that's why I ended up doing Pen y Fan for the first time and hating it, because I had to do training. Because when you do I'm sure it's the same for all of them, but when you do like something constantly for a long time, you can't just, if you stop, your body will get injured and blow up in so many different ways. So it's almost like you've got to come down slowly but surely from like sort of 12 hours, slowly but surely over a few months down to like a normal life.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe helped stop me having the blues as such, because because I'd done the event, but the endorphins weren't crashing.
Yeah.
Because if you sort of finish and then you stop and have a couple of days off and what have you. Certainly, if I have 2 weeks off training through injury or through, I had an operation at one point, and I had 2 weeks off, and then I had the blues because I'd gone 2 weeks with doing practically nothing, and like the endorphin crash, it just goes off the side of a cliff. And I'm just thinking, God, I'm really depressed, really miserable. I can't, and oh God, I haven't done anything for 2 weeks. I think, God, I need to do something now, But no, with the long one, because of the cycle ride, because of this imposter syndrome thing, I really found it difficult to take on. That I'd done it. The most bizarre thing with this, Mark Beaumont, the guy the guy who actually cycled around the world, he was doing a tour at the time, and he went to Treorchy, and I bought tickets, but they asked me if I'd go on stage with him, which was just fabulous, and so he did his first half talking about the ride and everything, his ride, which was just, oh wow, and he had his bike on and everything. It was just brilliant. And in the second half, then, to open the second half, he had me on stage, and like he was asking, and I was talking about my ride, and in front of all these people and what have you, which was incredibly kind of him to do. It absolutely made my year. Not as much to doing it, but he's the equivalent, like whoever your hero is, he's my hero. I can't get over the fact that this guy has ridden around the world twice. He's done it once in under 80 days, and he isn't famous or more famous than he should be more famous. People should know about him and what he's achieved. But as I'm up there, as I'm talking about this, in my mind it's going through I'm saying all this stuff, but that wasn't me. That was somebody else. It was really, really strange. I don't know why, but about 18 months or so, I ended up writing a book because I thought if I don't get it down, then I was worried. I was genuinely worried, and people were saying, "It's a good story. You should write a book." I was genuinely worried, that I'd sort of compartmentalize it and almost try and forget it because it seemed so alien to me. Thankfully it's not now, but I'm really hoping that doesn't happen with Pen y Fan, because I really don't want to go through that again. I'd love to have the blues or something, just some normal stuff afterwards, you know what I mean? But yeah, really strange. Yeah, really strange.
Yeah, that does sound, I guess it might be just coming into the territory of just for the amount of time that you're doing it, because it must just seem like a different life now. Going back and thinking about that, it must just be wow, I did really do that.
Yeah, I know, it's crackers. I can't fathom, because it is well, it's like doing pen of van now. Like, you know, like I'm getting into, after about sort of 11 to 20 days, you get into the rhythm with these things, and then it becomes like a normal way of life. But it is so different to practically everybody else's life on the planet when you're doing it, like, you know. And I gotta kick myself sometimes, like, you know, because you know, there was a week I was doing it, but the weather's been great so far, like, you know, but there was a week I was doing it, and it was minus 10 on the top, and it was blowing a hoolie. It was close to being that limit, you know, where the wind is so bad that you know you shouldn't go up there, but it wasn't. It was about 5 miles below that, so, you know, so it was okay to go up. And the hail was slamming into my face, and I was bizarrely, I was fine with that, because I was thinking, oh, this is great. This is a good reminder of what stupid things go to my. This is a great reminder of what winter will be like, you know. So, oh, great, a couple of weeks like this now, you know, every now and then it'll be good, because otherwise I'll forget winter, and I'll forget, like, because at the time it had been really nice for the first week, and it's lovely, you know, and everything. Yeah. And you think, oh, it's always going to be like this. You forget quickly. Oh, this is good. But I was thinking when I was talking about it in the lives and going, God, I need to watch what I'm saying here, because, like, I don't want to sort of sound like oh, woe is me or anything, because I don't feel like that. But equally, like, nobody else is doing this, but the me that would have been sitting inside you know, an office doing my job, and I love my job, but, like, if I'd been watching that, I'd be thinking, oh, you know, I wouldn't mind being on the mountain now, like, you know, I know it's raining, but oh, it'd be nice to have all that free time to be able to do something you want to do. Even if it's not the mountain, I could be doing something else. Yeah. So I do need to, like, occasionally sort of pull back and think, yeah, you know, God, Chris, you can't moan about something, because, look, you're out here doing this. This is fabulous. Like, you know, how many people would, like, not necessarily climb in Pen y Fan, but how many people would want to be doing whatever it is they want to do? I'm basically doing what I want to do with my life. That's a fabulous privilege. Most people, you know, maybe never have that opportunity. For a year, I'm doing something I really want to do. Yeah, it's painful, it's hard, and, you know, but it's great as well. Like, you know, that's good, isn't it? You know, yeah, can't fault that.
It is incredible. And the only, like, reference I have to it in my head is, have you heard of Ross Edgley?
I haven't. No.
So he's the first and only person to have swum round Britain. So he spent over 6 months swimming around Britain.
I don't remember. Yes, I saw his. Anything endurance-y like that, I watch. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So, like, in my head, like, that's the only comparison I can make, because, yeah, I've done, like, ultra runs and things like that, but nothing for, like, the amount of time that you're doing it for. And I just think, like, when he was doing his swim, I went to one of his live shows afterwards, and I got to go on stage with him and meet him and everything.
Oh, brilliant.
It was amazing. And, like, hearing him be like, yeah, like, for a good week or two after I finished the swim, I was in bed and I'd wake up and be like, where's my goggles?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're so focused in your little world then. Like you're saying, it's so different to everyone else's.
Yeah.
But, like, his thing was going back to, I wake up, I get my goggles on, I check, like, the tides, I check the currents. And that was his world for over 6 months.
I totally get that.
And, like, for you, it's going to be like, right, I get up, get my hiking stuff together, see what the weather's going to be like, tally up my
check
climbs.
The 3 weather sites, yeah.
And it's just like, you've just got this daily routine.
Yeah, that nobody else has.
That no one else has got.
Yeah, but brilliant. This is the awful thing. See, I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, oh God, that just sounds so exciting. that is, I mean, that is...
I think it's exciting to talk about, like we're doing now. It's exciting to think about.
It's just
but
exciting.
I don't think it's like as exciting when you're doing it, because, like you're saying, like, you're living it.
Yeah.
So you're, like, talking about is probably like, oh yeah, like, I really do get to do this. But you're going to be on the mountain, like, in the bad weather and being like, oh, this is horrible, or, like, the days Saturday where you're in pain, and you're not thinking, like, how exciting is my life? It's just becomes that pattern, that routine that you've got.
I know what you mean. Yeah, you are probably right. But I think you've got to have that, even in the worst days. You've got to hold on to a little bit of the excitement, because the reason you're doing it, like the bad days make the good days even better.
Yeah.
You know, when I finished a cycle ride, I mean, it was just amazing. You know, all these people turned up. We finished in Trago Mills in Merthyr. We had the bandstand, and like hundreds and hundreds of people turned up, and loads of people, like 600 people had ridden with me during the ride, and like about 150, 200 were able to turn up on the day, and they were only able to get on for like about 10 minutes each, because I had about 40. It was like I Tour de France did. I wanted a procession at the end, so I had a 40-mile procession. I thought, this should be nice. I thought I can have my first lie on since for like 6 months, and the morning I was supposed to have the lie on, Radio Wales had got in touch the day before and said, we want to, have you on the radio. I said, oh, great, yeah. And I thought, they'd be over the phone. Said, can you come in? I said, yeah, sure. What time? Oh, for the breakfast show. I had to do it because, so I had to get up really early and go down there and then come back up then and cycle. But it was just amazing, But if you don't have the bad stuff, then the good stuff, in a way, is devalued a little bit. So you've got to have the bad days. You've got to, and you're right. I will be thinking, it's really awful now. Why isn't it sunny again? Like, when's the good weather coming back? But those in some ways, climbing the mountain on Saturday and Sunday were horrible days. But to me, in some respects, they're the best days now because I've done them. Because that gives me such a confidence boost, rightly or wrongly. Maybe it's bravado or whatever. You're thinking, God, if I could do that, then I can get through some stuff, Whereas climbing it on the good days, up and down, I'm thinking, that was good, that was easy. Oh, maybe I should have done a bit more. Maybe I should have tried for a fourth one today, because I'll do that occasionally. But the bad ones, I get more of a rush out of finishing the bad days than I do the good days. I feel like I've achieved more. And also I hope it again is showing people that there are bad days to this, like weather-wise as well as me being bad, but yes, it's a strange one, isn't it? It's a strange one. The whole thing, it's kind of like type 2 excitement. The whole thing, looking back on the ride, now I can, and I now know it's me. It's kind of, the whole thing is like a boy's own adventure in some respects, because there were times where it really looked like I was on the edge, and I wasn't going to be able, on my back went, I was thinking, I don't know if I'll be able to physically continue this. Like, I'll keep going until I can't, but if the back goes, that's it, and then, I'm telling people this, on the daily updates. And, but yeah, it's just, without those days, it wouldn't quite be the same,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying I'd love Pen y Fan to go nice and easy, but it won't. But I know when I look back, I'll be grateful for the bad days, because they make it what it is, as much as the good days, I think. Yeah, you're right. I'd probably whinge in but they when you look back, they are the best days of the lot in some respects, once you're through them. Yeah. Once you're through them.
All right. It's been what you're doing is amazing. I know you don't believe it yourself yet, but it really is. And like I said, it's all to do with the consistency.
Thanks.
And it's not just the consistency of this. I've learned, you've been doing this for years, consistently putting yourself out there, challenging yourself, and it's definitely inspired me. So it's gonna be inspiring loads of other people. So
that's very kind of you to say. Yeah.
Keep it in yourself. How can people support you and what you're doing?
Well, if they're on Instagram, if they go on, look for Pen y Fan Dan, that's me on Instagram. If they give me a follows make, it doesn't seem like much, but it gives me a massive, massive boost every time someone follows me. And so much has come out of followers over the years that, I just find that incredible. Friend of a friend does something on result to somebody following you, and all of a sudden, you've got thousands of pounds in donations, just through that. It just amazing things happen. Or you end up on, like stuff like this, you know, it just comes out of the blue. Like I meet someone on a mountain and suddenly I'm in a podcast, like, you know, so follows really help. And if anybody want to go any further than that, my Just Giving page is on my Instagram account. But if people Google Penna Van Dan Just Giving, then they should be able to find my Just Giving page as well. And that would be lovely, because Bowel Cancer UK are such a fantastic charity, and they need all the support they can get, because it's the second biggest cancer killer in the world, and it doesn't need to be. If people knew more about it, and if people did the test, you know, we could cut numbers getting it now, you know. So so that would be fabulous.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming down and spending your time chatting to me. Yeah, good luck with the rest of the challenge, and I'm sure I'll see you at Penna Van throughout the next few months.
Pretty much guaranteed, I would say, yeah.
Amazing.
Well, whizzing past me.
Thank you. Now, adventure athletes do have a lot going on as per usual. We've not only got slots available for our online coaching, and we've had some amazing athletes sign up with us that I'm super excited to work with. I've got a few personal training slots, one-to-one, based out of Snap Fitness in Pontyclean. There's only 3 slots available because I have got so much on right now. I really cannot take on that many more clients, but I like having the opportunity to work with new people. So if you're local and you're interested, let me know and we can get you signed up. I've got a ton of sports massage slots open currently. I'm doing weekly availability on my Instagram, so if you want to learn more about the sports massage side of things, because I know I don't really post about it much, but that's going to be something I'm promoting a lot more. I've cleared a lot of my calendar to make sure I've got slots available throughout the week. As well as that, we've got a few courses going on. We've got just a ton of different events that we're going to, we're running, we're supporting. There's just a ton of little bits going on, as well as our social media and our blogs and everything along those lines. There is so much free information and guides and tips and advice and support that we are giving out to you guys, not just through the podcast, but through the website, through our socials. And there's lots of opportunities from other people that we're getting involved with as well. So if you want to find out more, make sure you're following along. Make sure you head over to our website to find out more about our services. And I'll see you in next week's episode, guys.